Hey everybody, it's your friend Adam. I am going to have I guess, a rejoinder to the conversation I had with Sargon of Akkad or Carl Benjamin. I never know if I should call him Sargon or Carl now. It seems like he's more down with going with his real name, Carl. I I I remember Christy Winters just completely using Sargon's real name as kind of a way to put him down as an incendiary way to get under his skin. So I think that's why somehow I feel if I'm calling Sargon Carl, I feel like I'm talking down to him or something. So maybe that's just me. I think maybe Sargon wants to be called Carl now, but I should ask him. I'll just ask him next time I talk to him. But we had a very contentious debate. Maybe I should play that first. Maybe I should play, because I think there's a clip of it on our channel. And the reaction to that clip is, I mean, the video didn't get a lot of views. This is a thing about talking about morality. Morality interests a lot of people, interests very few people a lot, very much. It interests me very much. It interests Sitch very much. It interests Sargon very much. It interests Paul Vanderklay very much. Paul actually had a video where he responded to our morality discussion. And I read a lot of those comments. There's a lot of comments that are super incendiary, which I don't like, because I feel like the most incendiary comments I feel like are coming from the religious people, which completely goes against my worldview that religion turns people nicer. It makes people less mean because it doesn't seem that way when you read these comments. I mean, a lot of the comments are basically calling me dishonest and unwilling to engage. It's some very hilarious things, which I'm always trying to be honest, and I'm always trying to engage. I just think that this topic is interesting. I understand why the religious people don't necessarily like looking at morality from a scientific perspective. They didn't like looking at biology from a scientific perspective because it displaced the idea of creation. So I get it. Evolution came in and took away the origin story for humans, and now evolution is coming in again and taking away the origin story for morality. And that's it's such a body blow. So I get it. I totally get it. But that doesn't mean we're not going to continue to talk about morality from a scientific perspective. So I'm not going to play Paul Vanderklay's video. I am going to we'll drop a link to Paul Vanderklay's video into the chat. And I guess I didn't put it in the description, but I'll post it in the description. Paul Vanderklay did a response to that discussion that we had, which I think I am going to pull up and play here first, but I just want to read the comment while I have Paul Vanderklay's video up, because I think the word success is what is really triggering try not to curse. What is really triggering the frick out of people is the term success, because they don't want to be in a situation where a nation with something we would envision as a terrible moral ethic, a genocidal, homicidal nation, which it seems like the genocidal, homicidal nations will succeed over a meek, although despite the fact that the Bible says the meek shall inherit the earth, it feels like the strong, subjugating nation is going to conquer the weak, meek, hyperly productive nation. And I disagree with that. I think the evolutionary story is evidence that has proven to be untrue. So I think that's why it's an interesting debate, but that's what people are nervous about. That's what started us talking about Mongol morality. And I made the analogy at the time that these moral systems are competing against one another for survival and reproduction in a very evolutionary system, for persistence over time. And that persistence over time is a metric that we should be interested in. And I didn't use persistence over time, though. I used the word success, and I think that triggered a lot of people. And Sargon pointed out the Mongols were hyperly successful but genocidal, so it would be difficult for us to say that they were moral. It'd be difficult for modern people to call the Mongol society moral, which is why I actually brought this up, and I'm going to play. This book has an interesting section. Now, I know this probably goes off the rails towards the end of the book, and I'm only 3 hours into the book. It's an 11-hour book. You can see right there on the screen. So I think this morality that Genghis Khan implemented first, which is going to sound super familiar to you, it's not going to sound very immoral at all. It's going to sound pretty moral. I think maybe the power differential kind of went to his head. I'm speculating here. Obviously, I haven't read the end of the book, and then obviously things got out of hand and genocide ensued and all the nasty things. If he could have just stuck to the plan, maybe the Mongol persistence would be there. But I was also this week kind of looking into the Uyghur genocide thing, which is fucking abhorrent. But aren't the Uyghurs Mongols too? I believe they are, which is fascinating as well. I have my eyes on the chat, but I'm not really reading the chat as it goes. So, but I do see I have a super chat here. Diogenes for $10 says, A-Team conquers the Chinese so they can build them pretty cities. Well, I'm not sure what that even means, Diogenes. Okay. Yeah, okay. I'm confused by that, but so I was going to read this comment from Paul's, the comment that I left on Paul's video. And I do appreciate Paul Vanderklay doing a response to our discussion, because I like Paul's perspective, because it is the religious perspective. So it kind of gives me a window into there. So I can be, I don't want to be offensive in my arguments. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's helpful. And I think really a lot of people are pouring on hyper offensive rhetoric just so they're basically clout chasing, just so they can get to the top of the social media hierarchy. And it's a great strategy, but it's a terrible strategy for society. So I said objective, Paul makes a distinction between objective morality and universal. Or Paul makes a distinction about objective morality. And I realize this is a problem when I'm talking about these things with religious people. They're talking about universal morality, and I'm talking about objective morality in a different way. So I'll just read the comment. Objective is a terrible term, since what religious people really mean is universal. There are all kinds of things that are objective in a scientific sense that are not universal. The size of a planet can be measured objectively, but the size of all planets is not universal. Success was also a confusing term for us to use. I think persistence is really a better metric. I'm not sure why people are so triggered by the persistence metric when most of our conversations about morality, especially on the conservative side, frame the arguments against moral infractions with a penalty of social collapse or decline. They seem to understand that societal persistence is a moral good, at least intuitively. And other people will argue, Adam, societal persistence is subjective. There are people who don't think societal persistence is good. They would like society to collapse. And I think, okay, if you're having an argument and your position is, I want society to collapse, that's my moral perspective. How we're really not having a conversation about anything productive. Okay, whatever. I get your claim here. I do, but I don't think it's useful. So I also said morality is about intuitive ethics. I don't disagree, because Paul Vanderklay was talking about how morality emanates from inside us. That's exactly right. We all have moral intuitions. The unfortunate thing is we have different moral intuitions, and we need some sort of cultural apparatus to get people with conflicting moral intuitions to work together in a productive way. That's the whole point of morality. That is the whole point of the psychological technology that we call morality. I also said it's difficult to talk explicitly about these topics because morality is so important to the functioning of society. Most people are just too worried we are going to mess it up and everything will fall apart. And there's a bit of that. Sargon came on our show. Sargon was invited on our show. Sargon has an open invitation to come on our show. So I don't want to. A couple times I said some things that made me think, I shouldn't have worded it that way. It seems as though, he's not invited, but he is invited. He's very much invited. We love arguing with Sargon. We have a lot of disagreements with Sargon. So that's why it's great for us to argue with him. But he came on the show, was invited on the show and was making what Sitch and I both perceived as this is the way it should be because that's what my moral intuitions say. We said, yes, we agree your moral intuitions are the same as us in this particular case. I don't know how we argue for our position with other people who don't share the same moral intuitions as us. They're going to look at us and say, well, that's fine. That's your subjective interpretation of the world and whatever. My subjective interpretation is different. And I think, fuck off. It's like, in order to build a society, we have to kind of avoid the fuck off thing. I mean, there are literally people on Twitter now talking about how we need to break up America, how there needs to be a liberal and conservative America, which is just completely stupid. And I mean, I honestly don't know. I don't know why we don't teach people a real, I guess it's because the commies took over the public schools. I don't know when this happened. If I had communists teaching me in public school, I didn't know it. I don't remember it. My schooling seemed to be completely politically neutral, to be honest with you. But nowadays, oh my God, it seems so bad. I have nieces and nephews, which I interrogate about this stuff, and it's like crazy off the hook stuff. So a couple of super chats here. I don't know if these are relevant, but I'll read them anyway. $5. I think successful is a necessary but not sufficient component of morality. No success equals failed moral system, but being successful does not mean moral. Yeah, that's a great distinction. That's James Hambley for $5. I don't know if I read it, but that is a good distinction there. That is a good distinction. The necessary but not sufficient. That's a good distinction because it does give us an out if the morality becomes super hyper successful and yet totally immoral. I mean, I guess an example of that would be The Matrix. The Matrix is the successful society in The Matrix is the robot society, but we would hardly call that society moral, right? I guess from their perspective, they are moral. They just see humans as cattle. And I mean, I'm sure cattle, people brought this up too. Cattle don't have a moral system. The whole idea, and this is my terminology. This is my way of conceptualizing morality, but I think it's useful. I wouldn't be using it if I didn't think it was useful. Some have accused me of doing kind of a critical race theory thing, redefining terms for my own personal benefit. I'm not doing that. I think the redefinition of terms that the critical race theory people are doing is nefarious. They're doing it to gain a political advantage over their opponents. That is not my goal whatsoever. I am doing it to facilitate a conversation about morality that I think is more productive. Arguing about our moral intuitions is time consuming. Linking those moral intuitions to some bedrock objective natural process, I think, could bear fruit in the future that I think is worth investigating. So I'm defining morality very clearly as a set of rules that binds individuals into a cooperative community to compete against other communities for success, for members and resources. Prag has another. Oh my God. Hold on. I gotta pause for 1 second. No, I'm not going to pause. I'm just going to prattle through. Prag for $10 says, morality as a tool for cohesion misses the point. Just because something is evolutionary advantageous doesn't make it right, and morality is about what is right and wrong. It's essentially dancing around the question. First of all, I disagree with Prag all the time, and I do disagree here because when you say right, what do you mean? And when we dig in on what people mean by right, we generally come to a conclusion that these right statements are things like self-sacrifice, things that are good for the community, being honest, which are things that are good for the community. Yeah. So what is the right? Find me something that is right, that is not an evolutionary advantage. That would be the way that you could make your argument, Prag. If you found me something that was the right thing to do, that we could not trace back in an evolutionary sense to some sort of benefit for the community and the individual, then you'd have an argument there. Lord Tennyson's pipe says, this seems like the Euthyphro question. Is something moral because an authority, God, height, Khan, say so, or is it moral in and unto itself? Well, the authority is the environment, nature, survival. That's the way we're looking at it. The authority is, does it work in a very practical sense? We are only using height as a way to understand what happens. Height is not the authority. The height puts together a descriptive understanding of morality that helps us get to the real authority. What is happening naturally? I feel like I have an eyelash in my eye. It's driving me nuts. So, and this is a complete mischaracterization of our position. If you want to say that we're using height as a way to enforce morality, what we're doing is trying to understand morality in a descriptive sense, not a prescriptive sense. Although, if you better understand morality, you would be able to devise better prescriptions, hypothetically. But you don't know if they're better prescriptions until you actually, as Peterson says, act them out. The whole idea behind Petersonian truth is something that you act out in the world. That acting out those behaviors either makes you successful or makes you unsuccessful. And that is the test of those values. And his argument is that over time, the values that tend to make people successful tend to get codified into religion. And his whole shtick, Peterson's whole shtick, is taking those things that got codified in religion because they help people become successful and decodifying them in a psychological sense, pulling them out of the Bible and saying, listen, this is why this is in the Bible, because this creates a psychology in people that is a winning psychology that makes them successful. My God, my cats are driving me insane. What what? Anyway, shut up. Look at this, Mac Daddy, J Mac for $50. We're gonna unmask J Mac. J Mac is coming on the show. We haven't set up a time or date yet, but J Mac is gonna be on the Sunday show eventually. There's Nick Ricada wants to come on the Sunday show. We have a growing list of guests. I think Doomer Politics is going to come on the show this Sunday, and I even asked Doomer for video suggestions that he might be interested in. I don't know if we can do a full show on Jordan Peterson and his postmodernism. That would be something better for the Thursday stream, obviously, because this is stuff that we, a smaller audience, are hyper interested in and hyper focused on. But the larger audience really it's a comedy show, guys. Come on, we know what's up. It's a comedy show. The Observing Otaku for $5 says, I'd have to listen to it again, but I think I remember Sargon making the argument of being powerful means you're morally right. Sounds commie to me. I brought this up in the conversation. I'll bring it up here because I don't know if it's in the clip. I'll play the clip, but I said, and I referenced to Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson didn't like the definition, didn't like the line from the Bible, the meek should inherit the earth, because he always thought meekness was not a moral virtue, which if you're a psychologist, of course, meekness is not moral virtue, I would say. So he didn't like that biblical passage, and he went looking for a better translation. He thought this can't be right. And he found a translation that is just, I mean, it's fucking great to me. So, and I only know this translation because of the Cure of the Dawn song, because I've listened to the song like a million times. But the translation that Jordan Peterson found is not the meek shall inherit the earth, but those who have swords and know how to use them, but keep them sheathed, shall inherit the earth. So it's having power, which you got to admit, one of the reasons why America is in the place it is because we got to nuclear weapons faster. Of course, we'd use those nuclear weapons to end World War II. But after that, showing the restraint not to use the nuclear weapons, showing the display of force in World War II, and then not using the nuclear weapons has created an environment where we haven't had the kind of losses we had in World War II since. So I would argue that that is a success. I know morally repugnant in the fact that Hiroshima and Nagasaki were destroyed, but many historians have argued that had the war continued, far more people would have been killed in the war. So that's a distinction there. Alex Karras for $5 says, any chance you can get Sitch's audio quality as good as it was on the Big Joel Twitch stream? He sounded so daggone good. I mean, it's the same audio quality that we did, but I obviously fix the audio in post for the video, so maybe that's not a possibility. J Mac for $50. Thank you so much, Jay. That's so kind of you. Alex Karras for $10 says way off topic. So way off topic means maybe I'll hold off on reading that. Let me pull up the other clip here. Let me see if I can find it. I'm so ill prepared. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to play a little bit of the Mongol morality while I look for the Sargon clip. Maybe that's a better order anyway. So you guys got to tell me if you can hear this, because I'm doing it through obviously my Audible account, which is probably a little bit of a no-no.
Several family members, particularly for his mother, youngest brother, and Chagate. He explained the need for such overseers by stating that Chagate was obstinate and has a petty, narrow mind. He warned the advisors to stay behind him morning and evening to advise him. In order to maintain peace in this large and ethnically diverse set of tribes that he had forged into one nation,
his ultimate goal is to maintain peace from within. And I think this is the problem. This is the problem America faces right now. Internal strife, internal conflict. So fostering, this is a moral system has to foster internal peace. Oh, can we agree on that? Can we just have agreement on that? Please. Oh my God. No, Adam, it's subjective. No, my moral system has to have internal conflict off the charts, or it's not morality. You can get there will be no agreement talking about morality. There will be none. We will not permit it.
He quickly proclaimed new laws to suppress the traditional causes of tribal feuding and war.
New laws to suppress tribal feuding and war. Remember my definition of morality here. Morality is a set of rules that binds individuals into a cooperative community to compete against other communities. Here we go.
The great law of Genghis Khan differed from that of other lawgivers in history. He did not base his law on divine revelation from God. nor did he derive it from an ancient code of any sedentary civilization.
Wait, I'm getting a little founding fathers vibe here. What? What's going on here? What? He's basing his law on Enlightenment values, not on religion? Well, let's continue here. You've piqued my interest.
He consolidated it from the customs and traditions of the herding tribes as maintained over centuries.
Sounds like whiteness to me. You're so bad. You're so bad. I don't even know. I think the wokies would classify Mongols as brown people, I believe. Oh, it's so sad. Jocko Willink has a podcast on the Uyghur genocide in China. Oh God, it's evil. I started digging into this stuff, and I wonder. I mean, we during World War II, we did not really know what the Germans were doing until after the Holocaust. It feels a little Holocausty to me over there. Scary shit. Scary shit.
Yet, he readily abolished old practices when they hindered the functioning of his new society. He allowed groups to follow traditional law in their area, so long as it did not conflict with the Great Law.
What? States' rights? What? He's allowing the locals to have their own local law as long as it doesn't conflict with his law? Oh, interesting. I'm very fascinated by this. I thought the Mongols were completely immoral.
Which functioned as a supreme law or a common law over everyone. The Great Law, however, did not represent a single codification of the law so much as an ongoing body of legal work that he continued to develop throughout the remaining 2 decades of his life. Genghis Khan's law did not delve into all aspects of daily life. Instead, he used it to regulate the most troublesome aspects. As long as men kidnapped women, there would be feuding on the steppes. Genghis Khan's first new law reportedly forbade the kidnapping of women.
What?
Almost.
What? How are the incels supposed to get a wife if they can't kidnap the women? What's going on here? His first law is forbidding the kidnapping of women. This guy's a fucking feminist. What are we doing here? What's going on here? Genghis Khan is literally the first feminist. I didn't know we had feminists in 1100.
Certainly a reaction to the kidnapping of his wife, Bort. The persistent potential for strife.
Okay, I'll give some backstory here. I tweeted out, I don't know if everyone knows it because I was laughing so hard when I read this, but so Genghis Khan basically wanted to live, his name is not Genghis Khan here too. I don't know if they'll say it. I can't remember his name, but he wanted to live a peaceful life on the steppe, and he had a wife and family, and marauders came through. I can't remember the name of them, but they kidnapped his wife. They kidnapped his wife. So he went to various other tribes and he put together a group to rescue his wife, get his wife back. So they succeeded. They got his wife back. She's pregnant. They get her back and she's pregnant. But he has the child. She has the child, and he raises the child as his own son. Genghis Cuck, right? What are we talking about here? Yeah, Genghis stepdad. Yes. So yeah, he raises a child as his own. The conflict arises because this is the oldest son, and the oldest son wants to obviously take power. And the other kids are using the fact that his paternity is uncertain to basically undermine his political authority, his power. But his dad isn't doing that. His dad isn't undermining his political power. His brothers are. Yeah. Oh God, this stuff is so fascinating. It's so interesting. Yeah. So I wish that I would have known this stuff in the conversation about the Mongol morality on the Sunday stream. But this is how it works, guys. You come across something interesting and you start doing a little digging. You start doing a little digging and you realize, oh, the truth is way more complicated.
Originating in such kidnapping still plagued Genghis Khan within his own family in the uncertainty of whether his eldest son had been fathered by him or by Bort's kidnapper. And the uncertainty would cause increasingly more severe problems as Genghis Khan grew older. Concomitant with an end to kidnapping, he forbade the abduction and enslavement of any Mongol. From his own capture and enslavement by the Taichud, he knew the individual and personal anguish of being abducted and forced to work as a slave. But he also recognized how detrimental the practice was to the entire social fabric, and what strong animosities and violence it perpetrated throughout the tribes of the steppe.
What? Don't tell me he's an abolitionist too. Please. Please don't tell me he's an abolitionist. I can't take it. I can't take that much pain. I thought these guys were what?
Genghis Khan sought to remove every source of internal dissension within the ranks of his followers. Based upon his own experiences over the disruptions that surrounded questions of the legitimacy of children, he declared all children legitimate, whether born to a wife or a concubine. Because haggling over the value of a wife as though she were a camel could provoke lingering dissension among his men, he forbade the selling of women into marriage.
What? 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 Genghis Khan, feminist.
For the same reasons, he outlawed adultery, an act that the Mongols defined differently than most people. It did not include sexual relations between a woman and her husband's close relatives.
Okay, this is where it kind of derails from modern society. They're a little more loosey goosey with the adultery term here.
Nor those between a man and female servants or the wives of other men in his household. In keeping with Genghis Khan's dictum that matters of the
how he's trying to keep dissent on the down low, but they don't call it adultery if the head of the household has sex with the other wives of people in his household. I don't know about that. That seems like that might get under people's skin, maybe.
gur should be decided within the gur, and matters of the steppe decided on the steppe, adultery applied to relations between married people of separate households. As long as it did not cause a public strife between families, it did not rank as a crime. Theft of animals had always been considered wrong, but it had been commonplace in the raiding culture of the steppes, and had also been the cause of lingering animosity and discord. Perhaps remembering the great harm caused to his family when their 8 geldings were stolen, Genghis Khan made animal wrestling a capital offense. Additionally,
there's your bestiality prohibition right there. Animal wrestling is a capital offense.
Required anyone finding a lost animal to return it to the rightful owner. For this purpose, he instituted a massive lost and found system that continued to grow as his empire spread. Any person who found such goods, money, or animals and did not turn them in to the appropriate supervisor would be treated as a thief. The penalty for theft was execution. Aside from fighting over lost animals, the steppe people argued frequently over hunting rights for wild animals. Genghis Khan codified existing ideals by forbidding the hunting of animals between March and October during the breeding time. By protecting the animals in the summer, Genghis Khan also provided a safety net for the winter.
All right, we may be getting into the weeds here. This seems like it's getting a little wonky. I'll go a little bit further and see if anything interesting pops up.
And hunters had to limit their kill to what they needed for food and no more. The law
Yeah, he's a conservationist too, guys. He's an environmentalist. Genghis Khan, the environmentalist. Yeah, see, when I stumbled upon this, I was like, "Oh my god, this is hilarious." His list of moral rules, his moral system. You can see, and this might be, was it Machiavelli who said absolute power corrupts absolutely? Because that might be what happened. He might have implemented, and this is early on in the book. So this is Genghis Khan's law, the first law when he finally rises to power and unites all of the Mongol people. So he implemented this moral system that was very successful, amassed them much power. But then if that power, and this happens in despotic states, they famously talk about this in the book, The Narrow Corridor to Liberty. They lay out all of the different state configurations that we've seen in the environment. And the despotic state is, that's Nazi Germany. That is the thing that we're all worried about. And perhaps this moral system created so much success for the Mongols that they did eventually become a despotic state, and that was their downfall. That was totally their downfall. So we have to make a distinction here between the moral system, because you can have, and the Christians say this all the time, you can call yourself a Christian and not live by the Christian law, and you can't blame the Christian law for bad Christians. It's kind of the same thing. You can't blame the moral, if you lay down a moral system that people believe in, or that is a good moral system, and people don't follow it, you can't blame that moral system. This also came up in the talk when we were talking about the enforcement mechanism for the morality, which I think of as systematically part of the system. You have to, right? If you have a moral system that has no enforcement mechanism, you don't have a moral system. It's the same thing with the law. If you have a law, but you don't have any law enforcement, do you really have a law? I mean, when things degenerate into madness in any end of the world movies, right? The law still exists. The law still is there, right? What disappears is the enforcement mechanism. The law enforcement mechanism disappears, and then lawlessness breaks out, because obviously without an enforcement mechanism. And this is why I think people generally are they don't like having these conversations about morality, because they're worried that it's fragile. It's very fragile. And I think there is some truth to that. I think there is some fragility to it. But until we have people on the left, generally, they don't understand morality in any way, shape, or form. And they piss away social capital in such a way that is dangerous. So I think really a lot of this quest that I'm on, in a way to define morality in a scientific way, is really to make arguments for the people who are doing the most damage to our system, to our moral environment. Yeah, I think that's a useful, because science, well, it's debatable whether or not scientific arguments will have an effect on them, because obviously when you're talking about things like trans topics, like, there's plenty of science, right? They don't care. That the science makes no difference to them. They want what they want. So that might be a problem.
law also specified how animals should be hunted, as well as the manner of butchering, so as to waste nothing. In addition to sex, property, and food, Genghis Khan recognized the destruction.
Yeah, Genghis Khan. I saw you guys saying in the chat. I'm still saying it incorrectly too, but I guess it is Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan. Let me see if any of your super chats are on topic. Going to be out of Genghis Khan. All children over the age of 12 should be able to vote. Well, I'm sure. I don't know if it's in here, but I'm sure any 12-year-old male definitely got to vote. They might have been voting at 9. I think Genghis might have killed his brother when he was 12, which was like his first killing. Genghis Khan was a shower, not a gower, not a grow. Was a shower, not a grower. Okay. With his ideals, Adam, you pervert. Oh, are any of these on topic? Lord Tennyson's pipe, who wants to come on and talk philosophy. So I'll be talking to Lord Tennyson's pipe sometime. I have to cut it short today, so probably not today. Obviously, seems a bit like cherry picking. Seems like cherry picking a bit to me. So he's not down with the Genghis rules. Whaleears for $5 says laws can be related to morality in a republic, but when implementing top-down laws don't necessarily coincide with the morality of the governed. That is also covered in the book. In the book, the Narrow Corridor to Liberty, they talk about something called the cage of norms, and many leaders do come in and try to dictate morality top down. And it doesn't work because the population has cultural norms that don't coincide with the new reality. And this is why one of the reasons why places like Afghanistan it's never going to work. It's never going to work. If you wanted Afghanistan to work, you would have to go in and lay out, there are certain cultural norms that you'd have to go in and accept. You'd be like, this is not going to change. We have, 20 million young people here who have already been socialized with this cultural norm. They believe it. It's a part of them. And if those cultural norms disagree with our cultural norms, which I'm sure they probably do to some extent, you're going to have Washington, D.C., for political reasons, not wanting to accept those cultural norms, because if it gets out that voters back home, that we didn't try to change their immoral cultural norms, oh my God, we're voting the next president. What are we doing over there? Why are we spending American dollars and signing off on these terrible cultural norms? But if you don't accept those cultural norms, whatever top-down legal system you implement is not going to work. Not going to work in a million years. Afghanistan fell apart well, I think the fell apart in a day is not a valid narrative, but it fell apart over the course of a couple months when they knew that we were pulling out, because those cultural norms never went away. They just hid themselves beneath the surface and were sustained. Utter Nonsense for $5 says S-Class steals money from orphans to fund illicit sidekick activities. A-Team donates comic book panels to the local children's hospital. A greater than S. Thank you, Utter Nonsense. That is good. Should we donate a panel to the local children's hospital? I could. I talked to Mahler. Mahler's like, where am I in the book? What's going on? Where am I in the book? Is it a speaking part? I told him, Mahler, no. Mahler, you just get your picture in the book. You don't have a speaking role. That would be where we put him in the book does kind of imply that he is either a super villain or a superhero. So it does, where we place him, should Mahler be a superhero or a super villain? I mean, we can get around it later in story. So I'm drifting off topic here. I found the clip. I'm just going to go a little bit more than play the morality clip, and I can't stick around forever tonight.
Potential of competing religions. In one form or another, virtually every religion, from Buddhism to Christianity and Manichaeanism to Islam, had found converts among the steppe people. And almost all of them claimed not only to be the true religion, but the only one. In probably the first law of its kind anywhere in the world, Genghis Khan decreed complete and total religious freedom for everyone.
Oh my God. What? I'm so glad I didn't stop. That's right. That's right. Freedom of religion, the American ideal. Copy paste from the Mongols. How can this be real? How can this be real? This is a simulation trolling my ass so hard. What's going on here? I was in a debate 2 weeks ago with Sargon, and he was claiming the Mongols are the most terrible people in the entire universe. How can Mongol morality be the zenith of morality? Mongol morality is terrible. Mongol morality is awful evil. Never let Mongol morality near your children. But religious tolerance. Okay, we're good with that.
Although he continued to worship the spirits of his homeland, he did not permit them to be used as a national cult. To promote all religions, Genghis Khan exempted religious leaders and their property from taxation and from all types of public service. To promote related professions.
Did I just hear that correctly? Did he just exempt churches from taxation? Where? What are we? Next thing you know, if they pull out, if I find out that the Mongol flag has stars and stripes on it, I am gonna shit my pants. I am gonna. What is going on here? What is happening?
He later extended the same tax exemptions to a range of professionals who provided essential public services, including undertakers, doctors, lawyers, teachers, and scholars. Genghis Khan made a number of laws designed specifically to prevent fighting over the office of Khan. According to his law, the Khan must always be elected by a hurultai.
Stop it! Stop! Please stop! What is this? The peaceful transfer of power? Democracy? You're kidding me! I'm dying here! What is happening? Make it stop! Make it stop!
He made it a capital offense for any member of his family to claim the office without election.
Dude, Genghis Khan was for draining the swamp. He was Genghis Khan, anti-nepotism. Yes, right here. Is this a joke? I feel like it. What's happening here? What is going on?
Prevent rival candidates from killing each other, he ordered that the death penalty would be applied to members of his family only through a hurultai of the whole family and not through any individual member. In so doing, he outlawed the very means that he himself had used to begin his rise to power, killing his half-brother. Mongol law, as codified by Genghis Khan, recognized group responsibility and group guilt.
Okay, this is where he goes a little postmodern, guys. Group responsibility and group guilt.
The solitary individual had no legal existence outside the context of the family and the larger units to which it belonged. Therefore, the family carried the responsibility of ensuring the correct behavior of its members. A crime by one could bring punishment to all. Similarly, a tribe or a squad of soldiers bore the same liability for one another's actions, and thereby the entire nation.
I think people do have this moral intuition in certain settings that, people that they associate with, they don't want them to make them look bad. But this is a perfect example, because like I said, I'm conceptualizing morality as a set of rules that binds people into a cooperative community. And all of these rules that we're talking about are, a rule in the list of rules. Now, if you look at the list of rules like an algorithm for a functioning society, I mean, you're getting to the point where you can start to really objectively measure things in a measurement sense, in a descriptive sense. You can say, here's a set of rules that makes up this nation, and let's look at their GDP and their suicide rate and how long they've been around, and you could compare apples to apples various nations. That seems plausible. I think suicide rate, and I this isn't my idea. Obviously, this is Emil Durkheim. You wrote a book on this, suicide. I think suicide rate is something that's so underplayed in our society. It probably is underplayed because it's so high right now. I think suicide rate might have even passed car accidents recently, which is just unfathomable. But if the suicide rate in your society is so high, I mean, that's a horrible thing, because that's people voting, like, this is so messed up, I don't even want to live. That's a terrible, that's no endorsement of the society. That's a terrible thing. And it should be focused on, I wish the news would focus on that more than it focuses on this systemic racism stuff, because that just seems like political wrangling to me. This might be on topic. If we want Astro Lime for $13.99 Canadian, if we want to get all technical, it's actually Genghis Khan. The religious freedom might have to do with the Mongols being tenderist, which is tied to the land. So it makes no sense to force it on others. Yeah.
Not just the army or just the civil administration bore responsibility for upholding and enforcing the law. To be a just Mongol, one had to live in a just community. Enforcement of the law and the responsibility to abide by it began at the highest level, with the Khan himself. In this manner, Genghis Khan had proclaimed the supremacy of the rule of law over any individual, even the sovereign.
What? Yeah. No one is above the law. That's American right there. No one is above the law. And we fail on this a lot, because you can't argue in the legal system that it's fair that somebody who has money obviously has resources at their disposal they're more likely to get off of whatever they've been charged with. I don't think that the law in practice is applied equally. And that's a problem with our society that I think is a problem. But the ideal that no one is above the law is what you want to strive for, what you want to work towards. Making that a reality is always more difficult. The practicalities of the real world step in and often get in the way. So, but same ideal. They have the same ideal that America has.
By subjugating the ruler to the law, he achieved something that no other civilization had yet accomplished. Unlike many civilizations, and most particularly Western Europe, where monarchs ruled by the will of God and reigned above the law, Genghis Khan made it clear that his great law applied as strictly to the rulers as to everyone else. His descendants proved able to abide by this rule for only about 50 years after his death.
See, there you go. There you go. 50 years after his death, the law fell apart. And I'm guessing, like I said, I'm only 3.5 hours into the book. I'm guessing once the other morality, the old moral system stepped in and said, we like it better when the law only applies to the underlings, the plebes, the little people. We big people who are in charge, us elites. We don't want the law to apply to us. That'd be too difficult. It'd be too hard for us to gain all kinds of advantages over to people if we had to live by Genghis Khan's law. We need to change that. That's corruption. That's the corruption right there.
before they discarded it. To run the empire in general, but most specifically to record the many new laws and to administer them over the vast stretches of land now under his control, Genghis Khan ordered the adoption of a writing system.
Okay, I think I'll play the video now. It might actually be more interesting now that we've heard that. So that could be good. Crack Rock Steady for $10 says, I agree that mental health should definitely be addressed in our society, from depression to gender dysphoria. It's no joke. I've been struggling with depression since my brother died 3 years ago. Hey, I'm sorry to hear that, man. I really am. Death in the family. Tragic. My wife lost her best friend a little over a year ago now. We actually it was on a Sunday, and we ducked out of the Sunday show because of it. And it's just, it is crazy. And this is one of the places where religion really is helpful, and where I find it super distasteful that people on the left are so anti-religious, in that it seems like a contradiction to me that they want to help people, that their basic moral foundation is care harm. They want to see people cared for. They don't want to see people struggling. And religion is a great way for people to deal with death in a good, positive way. And I think it's demoralizing the way that they make fun of religious people, who oftentimes find religion helpful in times of suffering. I know my wife is far more religious than me, and I know that helped her get through her depression. So, and I don't know if you're religious as well, Crack Rock, but I think it is helpful in those situations. So Kullivar for $10 says, new book for you to read when you got time, The Beginner's Guide to Nation Building. Oh, that is right up my alley. Yes, I will totally read that. I may be scoffing at many points, since I do think I have a pretty good understanding of how nation building would work in the theoretical sense. I think I missed a couple super chats here. Brian for $5 says, in the Black Panther movie, who was the source of morality? T'Challa or Killmonger, or some external source? I don't remember Black Panther super well. So, I mean, Killmonger was an outsider, but wasn't the disagreement that they had two moral systems, and one of them was ruling what is it, Wakanda? One of them was ruling Wakanda, and Killmonger wanted a new moral system, and so therefore he was trying to displace the old leadership with his leadership, because he wanted to try out a new moral leadership, which is exactly what's happening right now in the culture war. This is what the culture war is. The culture war is, there are a bunch of people who have a different moral system, and they're like, we want to try our moral system out in society. Fuck you. We're going to do it. And it's scary, because the wokesters want to try their new moral system out on your kids without your consent. I don't know in what world you could call that morality. They believe it, though. They're true believers. And I can't wait to read John McWhorter's new book. I've listened to a couple talks with John McWhorter, and John McWhorter says his new book is called Woke Religion. He wants us just to categorize the wokeness as a religion, which you should. And you're not going to talk these people out of wokeness. You're not going to make rational arguments with them. It's exactly like the Christians versus the atheists in 2016. That's exactly what's going on here. Those debates are not going to bear any fruit. They're not going to make any changes. They're not going to change the dynamic. You're not going to talk them out of their belief system, because nobody talked them into it. It is something that was their intuitions and indoctrination created it. So let's pull up this clip here from Sargon just for fun. Just for fun. I did talk to, oh, it's not going to let me do that. What's up? Copy. Let's see here. Oh, it's locked in. How does that work? It seems to be locked in this tab. Here, I might have to stop sharing. Let's see here. We're going over to where share talks amongst yourselves. Talks amongst yourselves in the chat right here. Look, and I retitled this too. People are being super mean in these comments. I was like, what the? I don't get it. When people come at me, I do get a little triggered because I feel like if you have man, you guys give me a hard time about it all the time. If you don't think I'm willing to change my mind, you're crazy. You're completely bonkers. I've changed my mind like 15 times on UBI alone. Bring me a good argument. My mind is easily persuaded. I will, and I'm going to look at that argument. I'm going to look at that argument and think, boy, I sure don't want to have the wrong idea here. Maybe I should dig into this. Maybe I'm full of shit. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. But people come at me in the comments saying, oh, Adam is just dishonest and a liar, and he won't even engage. You can't change his mind. He's a fucking dishonest hack. And I think, who the fuck are you? Why would you? What? Enjoy slandering people on the internet, okay? Have fun. Knock yourself out, but I feel like we are trying to have a constructive dialogue here. All right, here we go. 10 minutes. I have a heart out in like 30 minutes, so we might be able to get through this. God damn it, I don't think I shared the audio. Here, tell me if you can hear it.
Evolutionary reasons. I'm not an evolutionary biologist, and I don't see why we would need to go any further.
Audio or no? Share. I guess it doesn't matter because I'm going to share it again here. Share screen. Yeah, the audio is unchecked. Destroy. Sorry. There we go. All right. Audio this time. Oh, I did have audio. We can hear it. Well, I shared it again anyway. Here we go.
Then bestiality is icky.
This is where I think the problem is with the way that you're framing this, because I always felt that Jordan Peterson's one of his biggest talents was being able to take sort of moral intuitions and people's general feelings about things like having sex with children is wrong, having sex with animals is wrong, and he was able to give voice and understanding and words and logic to explain why it's useful and beneficial.
Lightning NC says, give us 1.5 speed, please, God. We have to suffer together because a lot more people watch the video after the fact, and they're going to listen at 2 times speed, and they won't be able to understand what is being said. So here, I believe I can. No, it's full. It's as loud as can be. Sorry.
Beneficial for society to maintain and retain these moral feelings. And the importance of that is because you have people who want to just deconstruct every moral norm. And if you don't have an explanation for why it's bad, then you're just giving them the keys to deconstruct everything.
Yes.
Okay,
exactly.
But why should I not be able to appeal to my sense of sacredness?
Because then they just say, well, I have a different sense of sacredness. So
yeah,
and that's why I think you're a pedo who needs the wood chipper.
Okay, but that doesn't solve the issue.
That's a makes right argument right there.
lot.
Interestingly, the argument that Sargon is making is an evolutionary argument, because I could see in the past the pedos did get the wood chipper, and that just meant they don't reproduce. I mean, they would go as far as killing all of their genetic inheritance, right? They'd be like, we're gonna get rid of this pedo gene one way or another, right? That's the whole purpose of the wood chipper.
lot of pedo
Well,
issues.
no, because
How is that not authoritarian, Sargon? You're coming off like a total
yeah,
authoritarian.
because if you
here.
have two
You're
people,
the guys who said that the Mongols are the most moral people in history.
There we go. Here we go. Now how is Mongol? How is that in the context of what we just read? I'm not necessarily sure. And poor Adam, this is Adam from the past who doesn't know that the Mongols are for all of these American values. I had no idea the Mongols were for American values.
No, we didn't say that,
said
but
that.
you did.
Yes.
You
no,
did
you
say
straw
that.
man
Come
us
on,
to saying that.
no, I did
But-
not straw man.
yes, you did.
It's the
But-
exact logic you laid out.
No,
because you were appealing
Wait
to
a minute.
contingent factors.
Wait a
Come
minute.
on.
Wait a minute. If you have two people that have a moral disagreement, and both their moral disagreement is on their aesthetic feeling about a situation,
Yeah.
how can these people ever come to any sort of agreement or consensus about
By
how to live
deciding
together?
on aesthetic criteria. Normally things like virtue.
But what is the
Yeah, but they
what
have
is
different virtues.
and what's
What's the
the
virtue of having
measuring
sex with a
stick of the
child?
what
I
is
don't
the-
know. I'm not a pedo.
Well, no, but that's the point, right? I don't think we're gonna. I mean, maybe we need to get Vorsh on so he can tell us. But like,
Ask. You had a conversation with Amos.
People in the comments loved that Bosch comment. And what when Sitch said this, I felt, oh, that's a little unfair. I felt like it was a little unfair. And actually listening back to this, because this got super contentious, and I think Sargon got triggered. I think I got triggered. And I ended up talking with Sargon and Mahler for like an hour, maybe an hour and a half the next day on Discord privately, and kind of had a much more productive conversation about this moral stuff. But I think fucking little bomb thrower Sitch. How come Sitch is always the good guy here? Sitch comes in and throws this bomb about how Sargon talked to Amos Yee, something he's probably not wanting people to know or bring up, because Amos Yee ended up being a fucking pedophile, a real pedophile. And these people, a lot of times you interact with people on YouTube and you don't necessarily know who you're interacting with. So I don't blame Sargon in any way, shape, or form, but this is something that I felt that's a little unfair. And obviously I tried to change this subject a bit, but Sargon was doing the same thing. Sargon was being a little unfair with us too. I felt, which I said to Sargon. This is nothing I haven't told to Sargon himself.
I'm sure he had all sorts of bizarre logic.
no,
and
no,
reasons that
he didn't like.
See, you can tell Sargon was a little. Why are you bringing that up, Sitch? Why?
I couldn't understand his perspective
I
at all.
see.
I thought he was
Okay.
making a libertarian argument of some sort, but I had no like. By the end of it, I was just baffled, and that's why until he went to jail or whatever it was, I thought he was trolling.
Right.
Because he didn't have any kind of logically coherent argument that I could extract from what he was saying at all.
Didn't Vosh I think Vosh made an argument about pedophilia, which is, you just got to stay away from these topics, because they're the worst topics, because people are going to misconstrue what you say. They're going to cut you out of context. They're going to turn you into a fucking pedo is what they're going to do. It's completely wrong and it's completely immoral, but that's the environment we live in. Anybody who's successful, these people, they want to destroy, they want to tear down, and that's how they do it. So I'm sure that Vosh regrets having any kind of conversation about that stuff. I guess it's kind of like the forbidden fruit, because they know this is the way to get attention. And I think when Vosh made that argument, he was a nobody. So he's probably doing it for attention, which is immoral in and of itself. Like, what the hell? Everyone says louder, please, but I have it all the way up. I have it as loud as I can do it.
I was convinced.
This is a problem with StreamYards over OBS. OBS is so much more premium.
Right, but
the smoking jacket. Vosh, regret, doubt. I don't know. I mean, if Vosh, anytime I mention Vosh on Twitter, there's 1,000 people that jump in and call him a pedo and say that he's a pedo. I mean, if he got in a debate, getting in a debate about pedophilia is a fucking, just don't do it. Stay away from that shit. You don't need to be arguing. It's fucking everybody. What's there to argue about? Everybody has utter disdain for it. It's such a debate bro thing to do. That's
to the point where like you got arrested or whatever that he was trolling. I was like, okay, well, egg on my face. But no.
That edited clip is so hilarious. That edited clip, I laughed my ass off. Sitch has been editing a bunch of shit in these things and doing all kinds of stuff.
The if you can't establish why there is like a virtue in what you're defending, then how is it that I don't win that moral argument?
I don't understand what you're saying, because we are establishing a scientific criteria for measuring those systems, and we're talking about them.
But wait a minute,
that changes.
Yes, but okay, I think I understand what's going on. The reason here is that if everyone agreed with each other morally, then we wouldn't have to have this conversation. If everyone had the same moral intuitions, if everyone had the same moral aesthetics, we wouldn't have to have this conversation. The reason we are having this conversation is because most people don't agree. Now, there's obviously large overlaps about things like having sex with children, but there's obviously lots of moral questions that are far more complicated and far more divisive.
Abortion.
Right, like abortion or something.
Okay,
like
well,
that,
what's virtuous about abortion
or something? But hold on. So that's why, to me and Adam, it's important and interesting to have these
abortion. Sorry, I keep coughing, guys. Abortion is a interesting issue, because one of the things I'm noticing most in the backlash from me even talking about this, from the crowd that has utter disdain from the idea that science can inform anything about morality, they tend to be the anti-abortion crowd who wants to use science to push back the conception argument. Now they have the heartbeat argument for, as soon as there's a heartbeat, it's a human being. How are they not using science in that? How is that not a scientific argument? You're saying you're using science to discern when the heartbeat begins. Obviously, a heartbeat is something a lot of us would conceptualize as human, very human. But they're using science to make their moral claims. Science is what is the tool that we have. It's a tool that a lot of people respect, as long as it doesn't disagree with it. And they don't respect it at all.
Conversations, being able to break them down and to understand why people feel this way, so that there is some way of communicating with people that you have grand moral differences with, and maybe you can understand each other.
Exactly.
But you've got no criteria by which to judge the moral actions.
Yes. We have a ton of criteria. What do you
name your criteria.
Well,
we're breaking them down into moral foundations. We're breaking them down into different moral intuitions. You have different moral intuitions. Like you're activating so many different moral intuitions when you're making your arguments. When you're talking about loading people into the wood chipper, which I'm not against loading pedos into the wood chipper, but like if you're talking about people who are just having a conversation about this, loading them into the wood chipper, I didn't
say that.
My authority subversion moral foundation gets a little bit activated. My liberty oppression foundation gets a little bit activated.
I'm a liberal.
My care harm free speech. Like we're talking about different moral foundations. Oh, it's so nice. It's so nice that the Sitch edited in the 6 moral foundations: care harm, fairness, cheating, liberty, oppression, loyalty, betrayal, authority, subversion. CT is doing some clips for us too, so I don't know if Sitch edited these in or CT edited them in. So, but that's great. Yeah, look, the moral foundations. We don't have that without science. We don't have that chart. My care harm
free speech.
Like we're talking about different moral foundations.
Yeah, but I'm a free speech absolutist.
It's not all. Yeah, I don't. Okay, but how do we have a conversation in
the act of doing something? Right, and I've explicitly said that there is moral content in the intention, in the act, and in the consequent. And we are
yes, but that moral content can be broken down into subcategories that are useful to discern. A lot of times, listen, a moral dilemma a lot of times is created because two competing moral intuitions are in conflict. One of the conflicts with the vegans is the care harm moral foundation. What's up with the numbers? What's going on? I see a lot of numbers in the chat. Against the Liberty Oppression Foundation. I don't want some vegan telling me that I can't eat meat. When they tell me, because fuck them. Why are they wrong? Why are they acting like a domineering alpha coming in here and telling me what to do? Fuck off.
Okay, but that just says that if they didn't come in like a domineering alpha and they approached you in a submissive, sort of coquettish way with a persuasive argument, you'd have to agree with.
That's not true. That's not true. Sargon is saying that I'm completely influenced by the stylistic argument when I'm influenced by the prohibition. I'm influenced by them trying to dictate my behavior. They could dictate my behavior nicely. I'm still going to be upset about it. It's still,
no, you just ignore them. But.
Yeah. Well, no. If you were going to have a discussion with a vegan,
you're missing the point. You're missing the point, Sargon. You're missing. Tatachi says, "What's wrong with domineering alphas? I like them. Boys, come on." The point. I am making a point about how there are different moral intuitions that are in conflict. Yes, I love cute, cuddly bunny rabbits. I don't want to see a little hair on their head hurt.
Rabbits are delicious.
See, there's a moral conflict right here. I want to turn the bunny into a pet. Sargon wants to eat it. Moral intuitions in conflict. That's what's interesting. The whole idea behind movies and stuff like that is when moral intuitions come into conflict. It's interesting to examine them. So
but what I'm saying though is that you can't make any moral judgments based on this analysis.
Blade Walker says, Adam, you were offended because you thought Sargon was suggesting your audience would be pro-Mongols after listening to your show. And look what happened today. I know. Reality has a sense of irony, it would seem. We aren't making moral judgments, and our whole purpose is not to make these moral judgments. I think this is let me finish. I'm in the middle of saying something here, Sargon. Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt, Sargon. I'm in the middle of saying something. See, look at how contentious this got.
Mom, Dad, stop fighting.
Oh, Mahler came in. Hilarious.
Hey now, Mahler.
Oh, Mahler joined in. Oh, great. Hey. Sweet.
So finish your thought, Adam. Sorry.
I'm just saying that these more I lost my thought by then. I have trouble keeping track of what I'm thinking these days. Getting older is a crime. It really is. It's a crime against reality. Alex Karras for $10 says, way off topic here, but a huge difference between progressives and libertarians is responsibility. Libertarians want individuals to be responsible, and progressives want everyone to be responsible. That, I think, is a brilliant distinction, Alex. I really do. I really do see them differing over the Fairness Cheating Foundation, which is fairness by proportionality. I think libertarians have a hyper sense of fairness, in that they want people to be rewarded for their work, for their input. And I think progressives want a situation where they feel like people should be rewarded because they couldn't really work as hard, because they had all these setbacks that were working against them. Society was against them. They're oppressed by the world, but they still need to get their share. So yeah, I do think that that's a right difference to point out. Pragmatic Culture for $10 says, why should I care that some rules that benefit society, that why should I care that some rule that benefits civilization? Why should I care that some rule that benefits civilization? Question mark. What is that a sentence? Why should I care that some rule that benefits civilization? Question mark. Maybe why should I care if some rule benefits civilization? Okay, it makes more sense. If something that disadvantages society helps me, what will make me care about it? AKA make me wrong and the rule right. If something that disadvantages society helps me, like that's Bernie Madoff right there, right? Bernie Madoff stealing all these little ladies' investment money and just giving it to his rich friends so he could look cool. That's something that helps Bernie Madoff but disadvantages society. What would make me care about that? AKA make me wrong and the rule right. Well, I don't know what you mean by that last part, but I mean, if you don't care about Bernie Madoff bilking little old ladies out of their savings, the money that they worked hard for, invested their entire lives to keep, to give to their families after they die. If you don't care about that, that doesn't change the fact that the other people do care about it and would generally call that a morally repugnant. Digenis for $10 says, how do we escape the naturalistic fallacy? We want to understand morality through evo psych, but it's either not supposed to influence our oughts, or we just arbitrarily say, no, now it doesn't apply. That's a question that we're all working on. Diogenes, yes, I do. We run into trouble with the naturalistic fallacy. We do, because nature exercises an influence on these moral systems. And it's very easy for debate bros to come in and say, well, just because nature had certain evolutionary pressures on people that made this moral law what it is, just because it's a naturally evolved moral law doesn't necessarily mean it's good for society. The thing is, though, just because it's natural doesn't mean it's not good. Just because it evolved naturally and exists for natural processes doesn't mean it's bad either. I mean, the thing is with that, I'm not necessarily sure, because they don't want to give any criteria to whether it's good or bad. They're basically saying, they're throwing up their hands and saying, we can't tell if it's good or bad. We don't know anything. We can't judge this stuff, right? We don't know. Yeah, I mean, sooner or later you have to put a criteria on it. Otherwise, you're not really having a conversation about morality. J Mac for $50 says, can't stay. My daughter wants to watch Batman Dark Knight. She's 4, but she's a badass. That's awesome. I'll catch the VOD later. Take care, all. Thank you so much, J Mac, and obviously thanks for your generosity. The Loch Ness Monster for $3.50 says, do you give free will on Thursdays? I need about $3.50. Take $3.50. Yes. Actually, I don't know if you know this. And there is some disagreement on the Sunday stream about whether or not this is a good idea, but officially, and don't spread this around, because I don't want I don't want to get in trouble. We on the Thursday stream, we give out free will at 10x. So you get if you $3.50, you get 35 units of free will. That's quite the bargain. See, J Mac here gets 500 units of free will for his $50 super chat. J Mac knows what's up. J Mac knows how to use his free will wisely. We'll actually probably turn that 500 units of free will into another $20,000. So some people have the Midas touch. V Radio for $5. What's up, V? V made an excellent video today that you should all check out. It's a video about the Young Turks basically race hustling again. What's up with that? The Young Turks sells fake news sells anti-white fake news on the reg. That's their business model, and it's fucking disgusting. It is totally disgusting. V Radio for $5 says Mongols were successful conquerors because genocide prevents uprising in the lands you have taken. Effective, yes. Moral, no. We haven't got to that part of the book yet, V. Thanks. I should have spoiler alert here. I kind of figured that was the problem. That was the moral infraction that we would find repugnant. So, yes, I do think that one moral law. See, and this is a good. I'm glad we're talking about this, and I'm glad I did this stream, because if you have 90% of your laws are moral, and you have one law that's completely immoral, it can ruin the whole thing. It can destroy the whole thing. I would argue that the slavery in the United States was the poison pill that we're still feeling today. That one moral law that people could own other people was bad. Ruin the whole thing. So yeah, it's an important lesson to be learned. Kullivar for $10 says A-Team reigns supreme even over the Mongols. 100% true. You get 100 units of free will right here on the Thursday stream. Don't tell Sitch. And Sitch claims that this free will is cut. This free will is pure, unadulterated free will. Okay. I don't believe. I'm not cutting my free will. Okay. Watch out though. Watch out. This free will. This is the good stuff. Okay. Be careful out there. That's all I'm saying. Kullivar for $10 for another 100 units of free will. This is Adam friended sexism and misogyny against Genghis Khan. Shame, Adam. Shame. You're just jealous because Khan was woke as fuck. That is exactly right. I'm jealous of Khan's wokeness. The wrath of Khan's wokeness. Kullivar for $5. Genghis Khan. All children over I think I read this one. All children over the age of 12 should be able to vote. True. Genghis Khan. I read some of these. Lord Tennyson's pipe seems a bit like cherry picking to me. Maybe. I mean, obviously, I guess it is cherry picking because we haven't got to the end of the book yet. But I will update you. I will definitely update you. And I feel V gave us a spoiler here with the poison pill that ruined their moral system. I guess I could share this, but I think I'm almost done with super chats. I saw one go through here. I'll bring this one up. If it comes on the screen, I'll try to bring it up for you guys. Let me see here. Utter nonsense for $5. Do you consider political right versus left to be structure versus empathy, maternal versus paternal, only moral foundations, or a combination of those? Well, I do think that I want to make a modification to the structure versus empathy. I think the maternal versus paternal is definitely yes. I think that's a good conceptualization. The thing that I have a problem with is people grab onto these conceptualizations and it's like they're not letting go. That's the only conceptualization they ever will use. And they'll try to bang any behavior into that conceptualization. That is just, that's not helpful. I think as a broad strokes way of looking at the world, these conceptualizations can be helpful. So yes, I would say that one is generally useful. The structure versus empathy. I mean, it's really, and I've written this out before. The left I see as anarchy, and the right I see as authoritarian. I'm still alive. Woo! What happened? So the right I do see as I need another sip of water. got me. Oh my God. Imagine if that happened in my TED talk. Oh, brutal. That would be terrible. So I do conceptualize the left as anarchy and the right as authoritarian. I think although there is an authoritarian, maybe I shouldn't do this without my thing. I think there is a thing that's going on where the left is about trying new things because they're high on openness, so they're novelty seeking, and trying new things is really, I mean, there's a trial and error process that goes on with culture, and that's how a lot of the things that we conceptualize as good now, I think, were discovered through that trial and error process. So, people get these wild ideas that someone is driving the ship, and I don't think people are necessarily driving the ship. I think a lot of this stuff happens by accident. So I think the structure versus entropy I would not use, because I think it paints well, I don't know you think the right is the structure side and the entropy is the left side. I don't know. Entropy, I think they are definitely working towards a structure, though. Like, it's just a structure that we disagree with. They're working towards a moral system that's not necessarily something that we think is going to work. I don't think a lot of us think it's going to work. So they want to try a new moral system, an untested moral system that isn't going to work. Utter Nonsense for $2 says, does MMT apply to the currency of free will? It does, actually. Yeah, it actually does. We can print as much free will as we want, guys. Was that a secret? I didn't think that was a secret. Antonio Cunningham for $5 says, can I get some of that free will? Thanks again for the Righteous Mind book recommendation. Yeah, I think Antonio sent me a super nice tweet on Twitter that he finally read the book. He'd heard us arguing about it forever. And he finally read it, and it really moved him in a way that it moved me, a way that it moved Sitch, a way that it moved a lot of people. It's so freeing. It's so freeing to realize, oh, I'm not surrounded by enemies. These people just disagree with me. The Loch Ness Monster for $3.50 says, a free willer already? A-Team reigns supreme. There you go. Look, get yourself another 35 units right there. 35 units. You're up to 70 units of free will. What will you do with it? How will you spend that free will? Let me see. Okay. Got to go back. Make sure I didn't miss any real quick. Let's see. I read The Orphans Sidekick. Croc Rock Steady for $5 says A-Team can be okay, but S-Class is best class. See, that's the difference between A-Team and S-Class. A-Team wants the best for S-Class. A-Team loves S-Class succeeding. We want every class to succeed, okay? We know A-Team is best, but we still want the best for S-Class. Astro Lime for $13.99 Canadian. I can't do the math. Maybe what's that in free will? I'm scared. I hate math. If we want to get all technical, it's actually Genghis Khan. The religious freedom might, I think I read this one. The religious freedom might have to do with the Mongols being turgis, which is tied to the land, so they make no sense to force it on others. Yes, I did read that one. Black Panther I read too. Crack Rock Steady on the mental health I read. Kullivar for $10 gave me the beginner's guide to nation building, which I'm gonna copy paste. into my notepad over here, so I can definitely look into that. Brian, for $5. I don't think I read this one. Sargon was arguing for an ethos, a specific branded morality dictated by the monarchy. His argument is that it is good because it is British. Yeah, the monarchists, I completely disagree with it. And I encourage all the monarchists to read the Dictator's Handbook, because the dictators, it's funny to me that a lot of monarchists seem to be Machiavellians as well. I think Dave came on and said he was a monarchist and a Machiavellian. So the Machiavellian perspective on monarchy is not good, because it separates society into the elites and the plebs, and there is no middle class. I don't know how you have a middle class with monarchy. I know they argue against that, but I think it's ridiculous. And the ultimate, I mean, the argument that Mencius Moldbug makes for this is just a fucking ridiculous argument. He wants to run the state like a corporation, which corporations steal more from their shareholders than any other institution, because it is basically a monarchy. It's a small set of unelected individuals who fucking give them, like, steal from the corporate coffers all the time to enrich themselves at the shareholders' expense. How do you not? That's not a good thing. In every autocracy, and they go through this in the Dictator's Handbook, in every autocracy, the working class is taxed at 90%. 90% of what they make goes to the elites. I don't know about you guys. We pay our taxes are too high, too damn high already, but they ain't even close to 90%. Dale, my voice is giving out here. So Dale Jehote for $5 says, it's time to go back to ethical banditry. If you're not strong enough to defend your property, it doesn't belong to you. Time to establish a khanate. That didn't sound like the morality Genghis Khan was laying out there. Prag for another $5 says, does breaking down the moral foundations of understanding which ones are conflicting actually tell us which one was correct? No, not at all. And Haidt says this in his very first paper on moral foundations theory, a paper called The Emotional Dog and Its Rational Tail. He says, listen, while the social intuitionist model is a way for us to understand morality, it cannot be used to prescribe morality. Oftentimes our moral intuitions are wrong, drastically wrong, in the production of public policy. Yeah, Haidt admits this, okay? You don't know. We don't know if it's right or wrong until we implement it and find out how it completely destroys society. As soon as you say, okay, listen, let's make polygamy legal. Okay, now you can have as many wives as you want. Okay, we're going to change the moral system. Polygyny is now legal. Then we're like, oh my God, the crime rate is through the roof. People are killing themselves right and left. Fuck, there's no businesses are falling apart because all their employees are dying of suicide. Then you're like, okay, well, maybe that didn't work out. The same thing happened with the prohibition. They're like, okay, let's make alcohol illegal. This will be better. Society will be better. We'll make alcohol illegal. It'll be hearts and unicorns. Everything will be peaceful. Oh, it'll be amazing. Didn't work out that way. Okay. We tested it out in the real world. We tested it we loaded it up, tested it out, didn't work. Yeah. Who knows? It might have worked with different players. I mean, morality is kind of like a game. If you loaded it up with a bunch of Puritans who were like, yeah, I don't like alcohol anyway, maybe it works. Didn't work in America. Prag for $5. Oh, I read that already. Utter nonsense for $5. Do you? Oh, this is my. I think I'm all caught up. I am all caught up. Holy cow! This was a great live stream. This was amazing. Another Thursday that I almost flaked out on. I was like, I'm so exhausted. We did the talk with Joel yesterday, and I had to edit it, and we uploaded it, and then I got you guys were in the chat when we premiered it today, which was a lot of fun. Obviously, it's great hanging out in the chat, seeing people's live reaction. That's always fun. So now I'm super exhausted, and I still have about 4 hours of comic work to do. I try to do 10 hours on the comic every single day. I have 4 hours left, and so that means I'm going to have to stay up super late. So I have that ahead of me. Crack Rock City for another $5, another 50 units of free will. Look at that. It's just so stingy on the Sunday stream. I don't get it. Concerning what you said about taxes, do you lean towards tax the rich? Taxation is theft, neither or both. Well, I have an MMT perspective on taxation. So I don't necessarily have a problem with rich people if they're innovators. I have a super problem with rich people if they're stifling innovation, which can happen. If you read Why Nations Fail, another book that I'm constantly talking about, if you don't get a thing going called creative destruction, a lot of people, it seems to be our moral intuitions, want to get in a comfortable spot where they're doing nothing and everyone below them is doing everything. So they worry when elites get in power, they worry that the lower classes are going to make things difficult for them. So they want the lower classes working. A lot of times in history, different rulers didn't want innovation because they were worried it was going to put the lower classes out of jobs and they were going to be rioting and make their lives difficult. So they stifled innovation. There's several examples in the book where somebody came up with some new innovation that could have totally remade the economy, and the queen was like, fuck you, I'm not implementing this. This is dangerous. That's not good. That's not good. So if rich people are in a position where they're literally stifling innovation, I mean, this happened during the browser wars. There was talk of this happening. So this is not good. So rich people definitely we need to keep an eye on how people are using those power structures that are created and are not detrimental to the rest of society. So, but if someone is an innovator like an Elon Musk type or a Jeff Bezos type, I want them to have as many resources at their disposal as possible. I don't want them to be subjugating their workers in ways that are fucking evil. I mean, yeah. So, but I have a way different outlook on the policy that it's difficult for me to have conversations with people who don't have that same outlook, because I will say things that they will strike them as immoral when I'm just saying them for practical reasons. And I haven't quite figured out how to navigate that problem yet. Last super chat here. I got to run. So Christopher Myers for $5 for 50 free world units. Don't get in trouble with that. If you get in trouble, if you show up on the Sunday stream, and I am in trouble because you used your free will immorally, I'm going to be in big trouble. Okay. So use it wisely. I was re-listening to Peterson's interview with Russell Brand earlier, and JBP claimed that you never truly mature until you have a child. Thoughts? As someone who's much older than all of you, who is childless, not for lack of trying. My wife and I did try to have kids, and we were never blessed with children. we tried a lot. We tried in a lot of different ways. I never shared my stories on that, but I'll let you imagine. I 100% agree with this. Yes. I think even when it looked like we were going to have kids, we were closer to having kids. I man, that just snapped me into adult mode. It really did. It made me fucking think, okay, I'm an adult now. I need to snap into adult mode here. But then when it passed up and it looked like that, when it looked like that was not really going to be a reality, then fucking hey. If you're denied children, really childish behavior is all you have left. All you have left. So I do agree with that. I totally agree with that. Although I do think Russell Brand has, well, maybe Russell Brand doesn't have any childish behavior. No, I'm not sure. I guess we all have a little bit of childish behavior in us, but on that note, thank you so much for the super chats. Very generous as always. I will, I got to just persevere through. I did ditch one Thursday and played games with Sitch and CT and the gang. And that was fun, but maybe I got to just persevere because I didn't want to do this stream and then I did it and I fucking loved it. I love hanging out. I love doing streams. This was a lot of fun. So take care. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.